can't express to you how grateful we are that you come. Because when you come to our programs, that helps our statistics and that helps with our funding. When we have programs and people come, that's what helps with our money. So I'm very, very appreciative. And the biggest reason why is for when people like D.W. Lee that come and give their time, it just is so much nicer for them to be able to speak to people. And not just, it's just nice to have people to talk to when you come and spend. And you never know, how many people's going to show up. So we're very appreciative. I have a quick little bio on Mr. Lee. And it says, D.W. Lee is the Executive Director of the Mid-America Bigfoot Research Center, one of the largest Bigfoot research groups in North America with over 500 members worldwide. With multiple encounters with Bigfoot, D.W. has been researching since 1991 and continues going into the woods to research the elusive animal. D.W. has authored multiple books on Bigfoot research, which, if you're interested, he will have them after the program, including one of his encounters with the elusive creature known as Bigfoot, and also how-to guides on analyzing Bigfoot evidence. He is also the editor of Bigfoot Field Guide series of books, videos, blog, and the radio show. In his spare time, which I don't know how he has any, he is also the webmaster and designer of the Mid-America Bigfoot Research Center's websites. Having presented at multiple Bigfoot conferences over the years, D.W. is also the organizer of the Oklahoma Bigfoot Symposium held near Stillwell, Oklahoma every year. In his time, he also appeared on Disney Channel's Legends of the Ozarks with another researcher when they went looking for the Missouri version of Bigfoot called Momo?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's give a hand to Mr. Lee.
Well, folks, I've been through plenty of presentations, so if it seems like I'm freezing up, it's probably because I'm having a brain freeze. So just before we get started, who all has had an encounter with Bigfoot? Or at least what you think was maybe Bigfoot. So how many believe in Bigfoot?
Can everybody hear you, or do I need to get your mic? Can you ask?
Can everybody hear me? I can speak louder. Okay. My presentation today, of course you can see Bigfoot saying, Arkansas researchers, research all natural. Kind of a play on the natural state. It's Shadows in the Night. Basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk a little bit about what is Bigfoot, and then I'm going to show a bunch of the evidence that we've accumulated in this general area. How many knows where Stillwell is? You know where Stillwell is? It's up there by Evansville.
He knows.
Okay. Anyway, a lot of our research is between here and Stillwell. At least my research is. We have a couple of research areas. We just went and opened up a new research area that's 700 acres of private land. In my presentation, you're going to actually get to hear some of the audio that we collected from just a few weeks ago. This is the first public listening, I guess you could say, of that audio. So we'll get started here. Yeah, just go ahead and click once. Oh, okay, there we go. This is my disclaimer, folks. I say it every time. I do not believe in the woo side of Bigfoot. And you may say, what the heck is the woo side of Bigfoot? That is stuff that people think Bigfoot can do that is not logical. There will be some in the audience who believe in the woo side. Sorry, you can't convince me otherwise that Bigfoot is nothing more than a flesh and blood animal. And I'm also very skeptical of most evidence, especially that being presented on social media these days. Who am I? course, I'm the executive director. The MABRC actually started out as Green Country Bigfoot Research Center back in the early 90s. We expanded. We are now global. There's been a lot of debate about changing that Mid-America to North America, but I am too lazy to change all of our logos, so we're stuck with Mid-America. Of course, I'm an author. Some of my books are up here. I've been active since 1991. Out of 4,000 times in the woods over my lifetime, I've had 26 encounters. So that averages out to 0.065% of the time I've been in the woods, I've had a Bigfoot encounter. A lot of people think 26 encounters, but I've had to be out there in the woods quite a bit to get those encounters. Of course, Bigfoot Field Guide. We have a radio show. I actually got a couple of DVDs up here that's got all the radio shows on it in MP3 format if you want to buy one. It's only $10. We also put out a Bigfoot Field Guide magazine. Here's some of the books for the Bigfoot Field Guide series. And we also do a blog. Put a lot of information out there about how to do research and other things. What can I tell you about Bigfoot? Well, I can tell you Bigfoot doesn't cloak. That means he doesn't disappear in this thin air. Bigfoot doesn't zap people. There's a joke in my group that if you come up to me and say that you got zapped, I'm going to take a stun gun and show you what zap really is. Bigfoot doesn't mind speak to people. He don't relay thoughts and everything. There's some people out there that says Bigfoot will carry on a full-fledged conversation with them. I think they need to go seek some help. Bigfoot doesn't use portals. Now, the reason I say this, there is a child psychologist in Washington State who has claimed that he's brought 10,000 Bigfoot from another dimension through a portal into our world. It's starting to gain traction out there. People are starting to believe that. It's not. I don't know how you come up with that. Bigfoot doesn't ride around in UFOs. They don't shrink themselves down. You know, you hear about the little people. Some people think that the little people are shrunk down Bigfoot. Nah. Bigfoot doesn't enter your house by going through walls or doors. I've had people send me pictures saying, hey, here's a picture of Bigfoot in my shower. It's like, no, I don't think it's in your shower. That is some of the things I can tell you about Bigfoot. Just the facts. Who all remembers Dragnet? I know that's before a lot of the youngest times. I really thought about getting Joe Friday up there, you know, saying just the facts. Just the facts, Bigfoot's covered in hair. Found mainly in the woods, has big feet, hair is different colors. That is the only thing I can tell you that is fact about Bigfoot. Now, some of the things that we believe we know about. Bigfoot has a pointy head, which is a sagittal crest, kind of like gorillas. You know, you've seen the big old male gorillas and they got that pointy head. Sometimes I think that's actually because the females done pounded them on the head a couple of times. They have no neck. You know, the head is just right down on the shoulders. Usually for this area, our height is 7 to 9 feet tall, and that's for the adults. In my area, we have quite a few juveniles. So, you know, there's a lot of times we'll see the little bitty ones running around. They have huge hands. Y'all probably seen the cast up here that's a handprint. Weight, they weigh about 500 to 900 pounds, and most of it is just muscle. When you're going up and down hills and mountains around here, you're going to build up muscles. They have a massive chest and shoulders. They're covered in hair and can be black, white, red, brown, blonde, tan, and gray. And any other colors I don't have listed there that they may be. They're just like humans. They can have different hair colors like we do. They also have extra long arms. They basically reach down to about underneath where my pockets are. Real muscular legs, and of course big feet. Now, for this area here, most of our Bigfoot are fairly slender. They don't weigh as much as they do up in the Pacific Northwest because the further north you get, the bigger the animals get because they have to have that bulk to stay warm. Ours around here, you know, the heat, going up and down hills, everything, they're more muscular, they're more slender. So when you see the Patterson-Gimlin footage, you've all seen that. That's where they caught the Bigfoot going through the creek. Now, she's a pretty hefty, good old girl. Most of ours are a lot slender. So we actually had one that we called the basketball player because he was real tall and skinny. Even his footprints was about this wide. I mean, real narrow. So, concentrations of Bigfoot in the 4-state area. These are maps, sighting maps that we put together. Now you will notice here in Sebastian County we got some, and I believe that's Scott County. Crawford County we do have a bunch of activity. It's just that we haven't put it on the map yet. But you can also see here in Oklahoma, bottom of Missouri, and of course Texas is mostly down here close to Arkansas. Lots of activity. We got lots of woods. We got the Ozark National Forest just north of us and kind of all around us. So there is a lot of activity for Bigfoot. Evidence from the surrounding area. Of course, you see Egbert here. This is our little mascot. This guy's sitting up here. When we first got him, my researchers, we were having a cookout, and I come back from going and doing something, and they said, "Hey, come here, come here. We got a name for the Bigfoot." And I'm like, "Okay, what is it, guys?" And I said, "We're going to call him Egbert." "Why are you calling him Egbert?" And I thought, you guys have been smoking something while I was gone. Had to. But anyway, this is Egbert. He's got his magnifying glass out. We're going to show you some of the evidence that's been discovered within 60 miles or less from here. We'll talk also why Bigfoot would be in this area and some of the traits of the Bigfoot in this area. As you see some of this stuff, you'll start to understand, you know, how we encounter Bigfoot. Some of the things that really adds to this area is we got a lot of chicken houses. They dispose of chickens sometimes illegally. We got more deer than we know what to do with. We got wild hogs. There's such a huge food supply in this area that it can support a huge number of Bigfoot. We even have all these little creeks and rivers and lakes. So it's just a smorgasbord for them. Types of evidence, we're going to look at some thermal imagery, listen to some audio, see some photos. We'll talk about physical evidence, which includes DNA evidence, and also eyewitness encounters. So, you know, I can't really bring DNA evidence in here to show y'all because, quite frankly, that's above my pay grade. I always send it off to bigger labs to have them check it out. So, now, when we look at evidence, it's like playing CSI. Y'all know about CSI on TV, right? They got all the super cool tools and figure things out. Well, we do it on our own dime, so we got to do it the hard way. We go and look at footprints, we go and look at tree breaks, hair samples, sighting reports, and it all leads back to that one culprit there. So this is kind of how we put together things. You know, we say, okay, we got so much evidence showing that we got a possible Bigfoot in this area. Then we go check it out. We recently got access to 700 acres of private land. James back here running the camera, me and him got to go in there, and it's really a wild place. We actually named it the Lost World just because we like to give our locations little code names so we don't give it away where it's at. We suspect that the Bigfoot knows how to open gates there. They're going through the gates. They're also sitting there banging on the gates to signal each other. And we actually got a growl from that location. And we're going to play those here in just a little bit. Thermal imagery. Now this is really great stuff here. Who always seen somebody use thermal imagery? Let's see if we can get this thing booted up real quick. So, basically, I'll do it two ways. We'll do it one side and then the other. You can see that this shows heat signatures. So, did you get a good look at it? So, we use this in the woods. If anybody wants to look at it here in a little bit, you know, I'll crank it back up and we'll take a look around the room. Thermal, nothing can hide from you unless it's standing behind a cedar tree. For some reason, cedar trees reflect around us. I actually have a thermal that I mount on my four-wheeler when we go on the trails, so we're able to watch what's in front of us. We do a lot of comparison work. When we first got our thermal, we went up to some folks' house in the group, Flatter over here, she's one of our members, and we took pictures of her horses and her dog at night, just so we can see what they look like. Here you can see a calf going across, you see some deer, and you see some wild pigs. We take lots of photos so we can compare it. Go ahead. Now, one of the things that we did do, one of our members has a Bigfoot costume that he dresses up in for Halloween to scare the kids when they come up to his house. So we was like, okay, we want to know what you're going to look like on a thermal inside that costume. And the reason for this is, if we're out in the woods and somebody is stupid enough to put on a costume and go running through the woods, and we get it on thermal, we wanted to see what kind of comparison we have here. Now, one of the great things that happened on this, on my button here, is you can notice there's no white showing through that costume. The only white that you see is his feet and his hands. So that tells us now if we're out in the woods and we get a thermal capture of somebody running through the woods in a costume, now we got some comparison to see what it looks like. Now, if you ever do use a thermal in the woods, I'm going to warn you, it will not see snakes. We went out with a news crew one time and they heard some noise and they were like, come over here with the thermal. So I'm over there with the thermal and I feel something striking my boot. And I'm like, oh crap. So I look down with the thermal and I don't see nothing. So I turn on my light and there's a little pygmy rattlesnake sitting there striking my boot. So the only reason that this is kind of showing up is they just basically caught it after it had sunned itself. So if you get a thermal, folks, and you go out Bigfooting, make sure you don't use it thinking that you're going to see snakes. It won't work. Now, why do we do comparisons? This is a perfect example. See that little dot right there? My researcher here was so enthralled about having this footage, he actually recorded video of what he thought was a Bigfoot walking back and forth in the woods. Another researcher was standing behind him with her thermal and took this picture. I drove all the way down to get a copy of this, and when I put it on the big screen, it was a rabbit about from me to Carrie sitting over here walking back and forth in the woods from him, but he thought he had a Bigfoot. So that's why we do comparisons. We don't want to come in here and say, you know, hey, we think that's a Bigfoot. Here's a thermal capture of a visitor. We have the Oklahoma Bigfoot Symposium, and this happened one night after we got through having the symposium. You can see this little spot right here. This was a visitor that popped up, and we caught it on thermal. So we decided to send one of our guys walking towards it so we could have a comparison. He got a little bit further than where he is right there when it decided, it started screaming at him, and he decided it was better to turn around and walk back. So, and then after he come back, another one popped up. So we had two visitors there. Now I can't tell you that's a Bigfoot, but the way it was screaming, we'd like to believe that it was a Bigfoot. It's a possible or a probable. Now, this may not show up too good. I have a hard time getting them to show up, but that's why I put red circles around it. Two researchers, 2 weeks apart in the same location, caught, and we can actually say that this was a Bigfoot. watching us for 15 minutes the first time, 40 minutes the second time. And the reason we know it's a Bigfoot, because the Bigfoot move at night just like they would at day. They hide behind things, they'll take a couple of steps at a time and then they'll stop and listen. They don't just go gallivanting around through the woods. What this thing was doing is it was down behind a creek bed and it was looking up at us. And you can see it move every so often. It was looking at us. Well, the second time that we recorded it, it actually had a deer walk behind it. And it didn't get up and go after the deer until the deer went down the creek bed, turned around to come back, and then it lowered itself down to go after the deer. I guess he thought, well, if you're stupid enough to come back a second time, you're dim. So go ahead. It's going to be kind of hard to catch it, but you're going to see some, when it hands back over to the right here, you're going to see some little glowing spots. There's one. Now, this is after the second time that we captured the Bigfoot. It was me and my wife, and we were leaving the area, and I was panning with the thermal as we was leaving. What had happened is, while we were concentrating on the one on the other side of us, we had approximately 3 more sneaking up on the other side of us. So, it was interesting because we're sitting out there in total darkness. You know, I'm not too worried about it because I got a thermal, ain't nothing going to sneak up on me. But these were, they were coming up underneath a little low spot. So, you can go ahead. Audio evidence. As you can tell, Egbert started his own band here. Okay. Equipment used to collect audio. This is what we have been using here lately. There's some variations of this. James back here has one that is painted black with, what did you paint it with?
Just some of that,
Bed
like
liner
truck
stuff?
bed liner, yeah.
Yeah. This, we put bark around it. You can put these up in the tree. I don't know if you can see it up here or not. But there it is hanging up in the tree. That's how much it is hidden. When we first done these, I took it up there to Splatter's house. We hung it up in the tree. And her husband back there, who's running the computer, walked by it about 6 or 7 times without realizing we had it there. So we figured that was a pretty good test for it. So, well, what we do is we take these little recorders, and I actually brought one with me. We go and take a stereo microphone, put it in there, and we slide these up in there, and we got a stick, and we can hang these about 20 feet up in the air. That way, nobody even knows we're there. We even had people pull up there on 4-wheelers and start to use the bathroom. Quite interesting things that you catch on that. Now,
Excuse me, do you ever use a parabolic dish?
yes ma'am.
Okay.
We got one researcher that has actually made homemade parabolics, and he's got one, what is it, 50-something inches?
He's got, I think Randy's is about 37 inches.
Yeah,
I've got one I'm putting together, it's 54.
yeah. Him and our other researcher have got a size thing going against each other. So, this is some of our audio evidence. This was Memorial Day Expedition 2017. This happened just about 20 miles to the, gotta remember what direction we're in, to the northwest of us. This was the last night of the expedition. We'd come down and we'd actually, this A spot here is an old settlement area. A bunch of old cabins that they finally burnt down. So we went down there and it was total darkness, and we started having activity over here where B is, down in the creek bed, and then we also had some movement over here behind us. And of course this was James's first time out there with us, so he was a newbie, and had another lady that was a newbie with us. So, you know, for this encounter that you're getting ready to listen to, it goes for about 5 minutes. You gotta kind of give us a little bit of time on the first couple of minutes because we're jabbering away. But then you're going to hear one of our researchers do a vocalization, and then he's going to get a response. And this goes on for 5 minutes back and forth between him and the Bigfoot. Yeah, just put it on that speaker there and hit play.
I want to say, you hear that? Well, could you repeat? Good again to be okay with you. You want to do a vocalization real quick? Okay. Well, Randy.
That's our researcher doing his vocalization. And we do these to try to get a response. And this guy's pretty good. He's gotten quite a bit of responses from his my grandson before he's reached puberty. He had a great little vocalization. We always get a response because it sounded like juvenile. I'll tell y'all right now, I always make sure goes on for about 5 minutes, and then they slack off. We think by that time, they got either tired playing the game with us, or they realized that ain't Bigfoot over there making that noise, it's somebody else. So, after this little incident, we're heading back to camp, and we're going down the trail, and this is in a valley that is 6 miles long, and it's just nothing but woods. This is one of our main research areas. The reason for the arrows, I'll explain here in a minute. I usually go and mount a GoPro on my forehead and have a thermal on the front of my four-wheeler. This night, I had somebody riding with me, so I thought, okay, I got a witness if anything goes in front of us, and I'm not too worried about it. So I didn't hook anything up. Well, as we're coming back through there, the person that was riding with me, we call her Blue Eyes because she's one of our members' granddaughters, and she's got big blue eyes. She just happened to start yawning. And when she yawned, here come a white Bigfoot jumping across the road in front of us. I shut this four-wheeler down and I jumped off. And what it did is it come from A and went across the trail. 1 is where I was. 2 is the
other buggy.
the buggy behind me. So usually when we encounter a Bigfoot is going to go away from you. You know, it's not going to wait around, it's wanting to get away from you and everything. This white Bigfoot jumped right across in front of us, and it was obvious that it was trying to be seen after we thought about it. I jumped off and I run up in the woods. James jumped out of the buggy, come running over there because he was like, you know, what's going on, what's going on? I said, there's a Bigfoot. I seen the eye shine 2 more times, and then it stood up and looked at us. And he shined his light, and he just happened to miss it and come back and jump back across the trail. You can see B where it was headed. And this really freaked us out. We actually got audio of what happened, and I want to play it because I believe it's about 2 minutes long. And you'll hear James ask me, do you want me to light it up with his spotlight? And then you're going to hear our other researcher who was sitting in the back of the buggy. Back here, he's going to scream that he's seen it go jump back across the trail. So go ahead.
Give them the distances there, Darren.
The distance overall, it probably in the woods from me to the back wall from us as it circled around us. It went across the trail, I believe it was about 125 feet is what we measured it at. So the next morning. So why did it do this? We think that it probably had the rest of its troop, which is a family unit, had the rest of the troop over there where it first come across the road at, and it was trying to distract us. And whoa, did it distract us, because we're over here looking for it coming through the woods. We probably had 24 Bigfoot over here, just we could have seen real quick and been able to get some good footage. But when it come back around us, that really got to a lot of us because, like I said, Bigfoot usually tries to get away from you. They're not going to stick around. They're not going to circle back around. So now this next one, we're going to place some wood knocks. The next year, we put a recorder in place, and as you can see, this chimpanzee here is using basically a rock to actually knock on wood. Chimpanzees and gorillas actually use wood knocks and stuff like that to communicate with, especially when they're hunting. We believe Bigfoot does the same thing. They use wood knocks to communicate. Now, we just got through doing a little scientific study a couple of years ago about how far you can hear these wood knocks. Used to, I'd hear a wood knock, I'd be like, oh, that's half a mile away. I was wrong. After we did this experiment, we realized that if a Bigfoot, if you can hear a wood knock real clear, it's within 200 feet of you. As it gets farther away, by the time it gets to 1,000 feet, it's almost to where you can't even hear it. And so now it puts a whole new perspective in when we hear a wood knock. Crap, you know, they're right there close to the camp. If you'll put the cursor on there, it should highlight the, yeah. Go ahead and play that one more time. Now it should, yeah. Now these wood knocks, we actually compressed them for time because it was over a 3-minute period. One of our audio guys, we got guys that specialize in audio, we got guys specializing in thermal video. He put this little clip together and got everything shrunk down so you can hear it better. But for approximately 3 minutes, these wood knocks were going off, and he believes it was 4 different Bigfoot just because of the difference in the sound. Basically, we believe this happened probably within 5 minutes after us dropping the recorder off and leaving. We think they were messaging each other saying, hey, the little guys with no hair, they done took off, you know. So, wood knocks, if you hear wood knocks, sometimes you gotta listen real good because there may be a gunshot, just, you know, not sound like an actual wood knock. But this is another source of evidence that we go by. Now, latest audio. Kind of happy about this because this is from the Lost World, the 700 acres we just got access to. It was a pretty wild night. The landowner kept coming to the gate and having us come up there because they had all kinds of activity going across the entire 700 acres. We put out our recorders. We put them in, what, about 6 different fields, was it?
Probably.
So, and the fields were surrounded by woods. This one here was pretty much in the center of the entire place, and there was some metal gates close by. They called us up there, and one time as we was coming up, they were pointing down towards where this gate was. And we got up there, and we hit it with the thermal, and we seen this big figure standing there at the gate. Of course, we're in a buggy going through a field, and trying to get a good picture of that. We wasn't able to get a picture of that, but several of us seen it on the screen. So we raced down there. This thing had melted back off into the woods. And we actually sat there and listened for a few minutes. We could hear it moving around back deeper into the woods. The thermal just couldn't see it. So basically, I caught a thermal capture of James, he's standing over there by the gate, just to give you kind of a size reference. Here's some little piglet seeds that we come across in the middle of the field. The adults all took off, and we found 4 little pigs, baby pigs, right in front of the buggy. We almost ran over them. But then we come back a little bit later. We was able to see that something was down there at that gate again. Now you can't really see it too clear, but you see this dark area right here? That is a cedar tree. Remember what I said earlier about the thermals can't see past a thermal tree or a cedar tree? This is a perfect example. See that little glow right there? It's right over here too. It's actually the same area. That's the Bigfoot's feet. It's standing behind that cedar tree watching us, but it didn't realize that the branches were cut at the bottom of the tree. So we were able to see the heat signature of its feet. When we finally got over there to it, it had melted back off into the woods. Now, you say, okay, well, what about that thing up? You can't say it's actually a Bigfoot. Well, from the audio evidence that I'm getting ready to play for you, because the recorder was close to this gate, you're going to hear a few things that kind of makes us believe that the Bigfoot are opening these gates, actually banging on them to signal each other. You want to play that grunt first? This is a grunt we captured. Everybody hear that? Okay, this is in the middle of basically Bigfoot Central, you know, and all of a sudden you hear this grunt. Now, we think that they may be banging on the gates. This next one is a metal bang at 3 o'clock in the morning. They're banging on the poles of the gates. The next one is a gate opening. The gate is opening at 3:30 in the morning, and the landowner and his kids will not go out in those fields after dark. We actually had to go and babysit them while they brush hog. So, go ahead and do that first one. There's a chain that they use to lock the gate and foam against the post. So, now this next gate opening happened 45 minutes after the first one. And I'll finish the story about the being scared after the presentation. So what we had was that same gate being open, and that was the closest gate to the recorder, was where we seen the Bigfoot a little earlier. So, you know, that kind of fell in with, okay, we got circumstantial evidence that's probably a Bigfoot doing that. Now, photo evidence. Blaine and Carrie, the gentleman helping with the laptop, and Carrie sitting up here. These top 2 photos are from their place. There's an old house at the back of the property, so we went and put some trail cams in there. We kind of was like, okay, does Bigfoot go into these old houses when the weather's bad? Do they take advantage of stuff? Well, This is the picture that we come up with. This is the shoulder of something leaning over where the trail cam was, and it took that picture. We went back and we did some comparison photos, and of course we realized this thing had to be at least 7 feet tall, because I put myself in the same spot and I was small compared to it. Now these two photos on the bottom here, and I don't know if you can see it too well, this is from southeast Oklahoma. We had an expedition down there, and 4 of us decided to go down and check out the location of the first recorded Bigfoot sighting in Oklahoma back in the 1800s. It just so happens it's now in a wildlife management area. So we arrived on site. A couple of our guys were looking for tracks. Another one went down the trail that went down alongside the river, and I found a couple of territory markers, basically stick structures. So we're all busy checking this out, and we poured the stuff for the cast and decided, well, we'll have to come back in 2 or 3 hours because it needs time to set. So I went down the trail to go get the other researcher, and this is one thing about researching. If you go out on an expedition with us, I highly recommend not watching any scary movies for a week before you go out. It will play on your mind. My daughter has been watching alligator and crocodile horror movies the whole week before I went. So I'm down there and I'm walking down along this trail along the river looking for my other researcher, and you see all these alligator slides, and I'm sitting there in the back of my mind thinking, one of them suckers is walking behind me. I just know it. I just know it. Well, I found my researcher and we got out. And as we're getting in the vehicles to leave, I just happened to glance back down the trail, and there's a Bigfoot standing in the middle of the trail. I'm like, hey, do you see that, to the driver? And he looks up and he's like, yeah, I see it. We stopped the other 2 guys. We all get out, and by this time the Bigfoot had moved over to the side of the trail. And it was kind of confusion at the time, because one researcher was seeing a Bigfoot on this side of the trail. This researcher was seeing the Bigfoot on this side of the trail. I'm taking pictures, and the 4th researcher sees this little baby Bigfoot going across the trail. And it's going like a little gorilla on all 4s. Now, we had a hard time getting this to show on the presentations, but we got one Bigfoot standing over here and another one standing over here. Right here, we happen to catch the baby going across. It's this picture right here. You can see the arms. You can probably see the head. And we do have these on our website, so if you ever want to go check it out on the website, you can see the pictures a lot clearer. I took another picture just within a second. I'm sitting there with my iPhone, just click, 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 click. Well, we still caught him out on the trail, but you can tell the difference in his arms. Now, if anybody wants to walk up here real quick and look a little bit closer, you're more than welcome. But he's actually moving across the trail. After we sat there for about another 5 minutes, we decided, well, since there is a juvenile there, we did not want to get Mama upset if we walk down that trail towards her. You know, coming between a mama and her baby, you're likely to get your arm ripped off and beat to death with it. So we decided, okay, we're going to leave the area, you know, let them calm down. They were checking us out to see if we were going to leave anyway. And, you know, that was that encounter. But we actually caught photo evidence of a juvenile, well, a baby Bigfoot, probably not even more than 6 to 10 months old, going across the trail. And we were really excited about that.
We've also got a new print from
Yeah.
out in it.
I want to show that here in a second too. So the one he's talking about, we recently went out with Cherokee Nation. They do a bunch of little TV shows that they broadcast to all the facilities. And they actually even have them on YouTube. So they went out for a weekend of filming with us, and we encountered a tree structure. And The next day when our tracker showed up, we took him up there and he found a track that we cast. And we'll show that here in just a second. Go ahead. Now, if you do a search on Bigfoot pictures, Oklahoma and Arkansas, this will probably be popping up. This supposedly was a picture of a Bigfoot over on the Illinois River, and it made the Telequa Daily Press. I included it on here just because I actually believe that's somebody in a hoodie. We actually found the location, did some comparison shots, but still, it was pretty compelling when it first came out because it was in an area of high activity. Physical evidence. Now, truthfully, when we talk about tree structures, there's no surefire thing that Bigfoot is making these. A lot of researchers will tell you, oh, I found a little structure like this. Well, I kind of disregard structures that small because it's in the realm of being made by humans. This right here is a quad bow tree structure that is 40 feet high. It had 4 trees bent over and weaved into each other. It was in an area of high activity. Not more than 100 feet from it was this teepee structure that was over 40 to 60 feet high. We couldn't really measure it too well because my tape measure kept falling over. But, you know, I have a hard time believing that enough humans went out there in the woods to this area because it was in a remote location trying to put these structures together. So just the size of them makes me believe that humans didn't do it, but something else did. Now this little guy right here popped up overnight alongside of a little lake. And we couldn't get out to it because the second that you stepped out there in the mud, you sunk about this deep. But it popped up out of nowhere, and I can't tell you that Bigfoot made that, but something made that, and it sure wasn't a human because we couldn't get out there to it. We also have tree bows. This tree bow here is in an area where there's approximately 15 tree bows. And what you do, and this will come into play here in a little bit when I talk about what happened with the film crew. When you stand there and see a tree bow, if you look in the direction that the tree is bowed, chances are you'll find another one just right down from it. Wherever that tree bow is pointing, you'll usually find another tree bow. This actually leads down to a water supply down on the side of a mountain. So it was basically cedar trees that were stripped of all the branches and all the bark and then drove 6 inches into the ground on the top of it. You know, did humans do that? It is a possibility that humans did that. You know, they could have been pointing the way to a marijuana patch for all we know. But when it was drove 6 inches into the ground, it kind of led me to believe that it wasn't humans that made it. Because humans would probably just put a rock over it to hold it down. Go ahead. Now, the film crew that we went out with, first time we went in, we were going to drop off our recorders and stuff. And right there on the side of the trail, and my guys will tell you, when it comes to seeing something from the side of the trail, I'm usually pretty skeptical about it. But this tree did not have a root ball, did not have where it had broken on the other side. You can see where it was burned. But this tree had been placed across 4 trees, and it had been wedged in there on little bitty branches that if that thing would have fell on the branches, it would have snapped the branches off. Here you can see realistic. He's, I think, 6'8".
6'7", 6'8".
Yeah, we got to look up to him. We always tell him, you know, if we're in the woods in the middle of the night in the darkness and you come running through there, you better be screaming English or we're going to start shooting at you because we think you're a Bigfoot coming at us. And we don't really go looking for Bigfoot with guns to shoot him. You know, it's just, we take pistols out there for wild hogs, you know. Yeah, basically protection. Well, you can see where the fork is here. The direction it was pointing, guess what we found? We found a tree bow. We went down there and we looked at the tree bow, and guess what? There's another tree bow down the direction that it was pointing. The next day, our tracker showed up. He had to come in from out of town, and when he did, we set him on the trail. We told him, okay, follow the tree bows. Well, he did. What he found was, we found 2 different sized juvenile tracks. In other words, 2 different juveniles, and apparently their parents had come through. This is the one that we was able to cast. And I wish I could have brought it with me, but he lives in Oklahoma City, so trying to catch up to him and get that kind of stuff. Maybe next time we give a presentation, we'll have it with us. It was 9 inches long and about 3 inches wide. So just the fact that we found tracks at this location made us believe that it wasn't humans that built that. We think that the local Bigfoot did. Now here's some other strange, wild things that happened to us. I can't say Bigfoot did it, but Bigfoot was present when it happened. You see the rocks there. 2 of our researchers come down to the valley for a night of researching. And one of them found what he thought was a track, so he stacked up 3 rocks, these same 3 rocks, right on top of each other to mark it, so they could come back and look at it the next morning when they had more light. They seen a juvenile Bigfoot across the creek from them, and it was playing hide and go seek with them. Well, the next morning when they got up, those 3 rocks were put like that. Can I say the juvenile did it? No, I can't. But these are 2 researchers that I trust highly. You know, I don't think that they would make this stuff up. But they woke up the next morning and that's what they found. So, and then these grassy things here, I call them grass balls. They're not really balls, but, you know, for lack of a better way of saying it, that's, we had a family that was having sightings of Bigfoot on their property, so they invited us up. So me and another researcher, we went out with the husband and wife that own the place and there's one of their sons. And we're sitting there and with the night scope, because we didn't have a thermal at the time, we seen a Bigfoot down in the corner of the field looking at us. Well, he disappeared. So it was probably about 30 minutes after it started getting dark. The wife is sitting there playing on her phone, so she's lit up. You know, the phone's just got her all lit up. And she starts getting hit by things. About every 2 or 3 minutes, she's getting hit. And she's thinking it's a bug, because, you know, got the light. And so she kept getting hit, and her son said, well, you know, I want to catch that bug for you, Mom, and I'll get rid of it. So he's over there looking around her, trying to catch the bug on the ground, and he notices that there's 3 of these grass balls sitting there. So we're like, okay, this is really weird. We set them on our little fold-up table here, and I'm sitting there watching the husband, and the other researcher is watching the son to make sure that they're not tossing them at the wife. Well, she said, I got hit again. And we had been watching them, so we knew it wasn't them throwing it. So we went over there, and sure enough, there was another grass ball. So after about 7 grass balls, we're all standing around this little table here looking, and a grass ball comes flying in the middle of us. So after probably 25, 30 minutes of this going on, I decided I'm going to go walking out into the field. Whatever's throwing them, I'm going to try to get it to stand up. So I got my camcorder in one hand and my flashlight in the other. Just as soon as I started walking out in the direction that these things were being thrown from, a grass ball comes from the other side of us. So the next day we went out there and we looked where these things we thought had been thrown at us. And there was a bunch of bushes right there in the field. And and behind the bush, all the grass had been laid on. I mean, it was all flattened down. But you could also see where something had been picking the grass to make these grass bars. We tried to make them ourselves. We couldn't. My grandson, who was about 7 at the time, we tried to get him to make them, smaller hands. He couldn't make them. I can't say Bigfoot did it, but the Bigfoot was seen in the field with us, and then we was getting hammered by these things. So that was quite an interesting experience. It was one of those things that just more evidence that something weird is going on out there. Handprints on vehicles. We have been out on expedition, and as you can see, I think that's a dollar bill. My researchers are pretty cheap. They don't carry nothing more than dollar bills. So. But you can see the size reference there. We were on expedition, and this researcher had parked his vehicle on the outside perimeter. And the next morning when he woke up, that was on his vehicle. Well, the next night, another researcher was parked on the other side of the perimeter, and he actually was sleeping in the passenger seat of his truck. The next morning when he woke up, there was handprints where it looked like something had leaned over the front of his vehicle and was looking at him while he was sleeping. I can't say that belongs to a Bigfoot, but y'all seen how big this hand is. We can lay a dollar bill by it, and I bet you it'll show pretty much the same comparison. Peanut butter. We like to use peanut butter to bait Bigfoot. I mean, what animal don't like peanut butter? This peanut butter jar here we set out about 3 months before New Year's. We actually put the lid on it. I had it tied up in a tree with twine, and basically what I did is I looped it over the tree and tied it to a log back behind the tree. We come back about 3 months later, it was gone. I was like, well, crap. And you can see where the string had been pulled apart. We looked around and we found the jar sitting there, and it looked like something had either taken its finger or put its tongue in there and licked it. So I don't believe it was a human that did it, because let's face it, we're all lazy. If we would have seen a little knot there on that log, we would have just went over there and pulled the dang knot loose and just let the jar drop. But something walked up there about 8 feet high and just jerked this bottle down and then took a taste of it. We were able to cast it. We had to use plaster of Paris, which makes it real brittle, so we don't bring it on display anymore. But we did also see what we believed were fingerprints from where it stuck its finger in there. This is the Oklahoma handprint. This actually comes from about 15 miles to the west of us. Some ladies found this in their yard after a rainstorm and washed it down from a field above. This thing was approximately, I believe it was 7 inches wide. We actually got a vet. He went and took these x-rays of it, and he informed us that the bones were missing out of it. And he suspected that this thing had probably been out in the field and had been sticking up, and as the hay cutter had come through, it had chopped that top of the foot off and then come on down. Because you can see the string from a hay bale. We took it to the University of Oklahoma. They did some tests on it. If I remember right, it was like 600 years old. So I can't say that's a Bigfoot foot. It could be Native American, but we also seen claws on it. So it was an interesting find. We like to include that on evidence for the simple fact that, to me, that the size of it was pretty compelling. So popcorn ball tree incident. This is a base station that Carrie and I was putting down the road from their house. She's lived there most of her life, so we figured that the Bigfoot kind of knew who she was. So you can see, we put some bait out, and we put a picture with a Bigfoot, and then a picture of me and her on there just to show with some food that, hey, this is the who's feeding. And she actually had activity pick up at her house. Something was banging on the side of the house and banging on the walls. And, so every year during Halloween, I buy 4 or 5 big old boxes of popcorn balls. I love baiting Bigfoot with popcorn balls. So for a good 2 or 3 months, we were putting popcorn balls on this little tree behind here. Well, one day we went down there to put more popcorn balls out, and the tree is gone. Something had ripped the tree out of the ground and took it. And I like to joke that Bigfoot decided, hey, this thing is growing popcorn balls. I'm going to take it and plant it somewhere else where I can have them. So, you know, just the fact that the whole tree disappeared. And I'm talking, you know, a sapling about this big around, about this tall, just completely disappeared. So, one of the things that kind of makes us believe that Bigfoot was going up to this base station is just, what was it, probably 50 feet was the peat moss field. There was a big little field or clearing of peat moss. And we walked over there and was looking around, and you can see all these little foot tracks going back and forth. And they looked like Bigfoot baby tracks. Apparently they were sending the babies up there to get the food while they sit back and watch. But there was probably close to 70 tracks there. Now, eyewitness accounts. This is the white Bigfoot that is just north of this area. We've seen him quite a few times. You heard me talk about the Bigfoot going across the trail in front of us. This is a time that I seen him with a night scope. It's a witness drawing, and I couldn't take a picture through the night scope. But this thing was standing behind the V of a tree, and it was built better than Arnold Schwarzenegger. So, you know, he's pretty good sized. This one above it, this was a juvenile. One of our research areas has about 10 acres of river reed. And we would go down and we park our vehicles alongside the river reed on the creek bed. Well, one of our researchers walked over to his vehicle to get something out, and he got back, opened the back of it up, and started getting in, and he realized something was sitting there in the river reed right beside him. And he looked over, and it was a juvenile Bigfoot. And it turned and walked up into the river reed. That is the first and only time I've ever seen that man drop an F-bomb. He was that shook up about it. This other photo or other drawing over here, this happened 2 years ago by Nycut, Oklahoma, which is just a little bit from here. A preacher who goes out with us a lot just so happened to have to go back down to get his chair from one of the campsites. And as he come around the corner, there was a Bigfoot going across the trail for him. His first sighting ever. And he said he about had a heart attack right there. He's had health problems ever since, so that's probably related. But there is the cast that they made of one of the footprints that had left behind. Go ahead, Blaine. This incident here, we took one of our guys used to be a high school wrestling coach, and his wrestlers went to state, so he wanted to take them out Bigfoot. Well, we had taken them all out and put them on this trail in listening post, and the activity really picked up. I think just all the kids running around screaming and having a good time attracted the Bigfoot. So we put 3 groups out, and the 2 farthest groups started getting on the radio. Coach, you ain't gonna believe this. The Bigfoot just walked between us. The Bigfoot had walked across a trail where the 2 groups could basically see each other. And had come back around and stood behind the farthest group they're like, Coach, you got to come get us. You got to come get us. So we started heading down that way, and we got to the first group, and they were down on the creek bed. And we have one Bigfoot that smells like 4-week-old dead fish because we think that's all it eats is dead fish. So I said, okay, I'll wait here with these boys. You go get the others and bring them back. And then we'll take them all back to camp because I didn't want these boys out there in the woods with this much activity. So he gets up to the first group and sends them back, and they come through, and I'm like, okay, you guys go on back. He gets up to the furthest group, and the boys are sitting there hugging each other. They're so scared. Now, not trying to make fun of them, but they were really brave when they headed out. But when they seen that Bigfoot go across the trail, they changed their tune. So he got them, and when they come back, I kept smelling that 4-week dead fish smell, and it kept coming in and coming out, coming in, coming out. You know, if there's a dead fish around, that smell's right there. It's not going to keep going in and out. And I started hearing something splashing in the water. So when he got back, he sent the other boys back, and we had the 2 that was there in that listening post with us. And I said, okay, let's turn on our flashlights and see if we catch whatever it is. You know, probably a dog or, you know, coyote or whatever. Well, we turn on our flashlights just at the time that that Bigfoot steps out of the creek and steps behind these trees right here. And you can kind of see our representation of it. Here he is standing behind the tree from night vision view. But we had our flashlights on him. He's standing behind this tree, and he is just not moving. He is afraid to move because we got him lit up. Now, you notice, remember all my disclaimer? I said Bigfoot does not do woo things. He does not disappear. If Bigfoot could disappear, he would have done it in this situation because we had him dead to rights with our flashlights. So Coach gets on the radio and he tells them boys, get down here with everything that shines. He didn't get through saying shine before them boys run all the way down there, and they were down there with their flashlights. So we got this thing cornered, and all the boys, you know, they're dropping F-bombs, and they're like, sorry, Coach, sorry, Coach. They're excited that this thing, you know, kind of looks a little bit around. They can see the eye shine. And I feel that we're stressing this thing out, so I tell the coach, let's turn our lights off for a few seconds, turn them back on, and see if we can catch it trying to move away. Well, there is some river reed back behind it, about 75 feet. We turned off our lights, and just as soon as we turned them on, all you could see on the river reed was this. It had already made it to the river reed and hightailed it. But we had 13 witnesses see this Bigfoot. So that right there was really great. We had that many witnesses. Go ahead. Here's another sighting encounter that we had. There's an underground spring right here, and there was a car sitting there. And as they were sitting there, they seen a female and a juvenile coming up the creek bed here because we suspect they'd go under the bridge here. So they're sitting there watching it, and all of a sudden one of them realizes that someone's watching them. There's an embankment right here above them. They said that thing had to have been at least 9 feet tall. It was a big male, and it started screaming at them. It freaked them out so bad that they started the car up, and they tore out of there and tore the bumper off as they made that turn right there. So, you know, I don't make fun of people when they freak out when they have an encounter because I've been in the same situation when I've had an encounter. Everybody handles things different. One of my main encounters, I get teased quite a bit because I'm one of only 2 people that I know of that has actually had a Bigfoot pick up their 4-wheeler. I've actually got the encounter completely wrote down in my book here. But what it was is, I'll be honest, I was putting on a show for people because we were doing our symposium. We learned that if we cruise up into the valley on 4-wheelers and cruise back out, they usually follow us out. Basically, from my They're just making sure that we actually get out of the valley. So they wanted to set up a listening post. I said, okay, you guys go down and sit at the creek. I'll run up into the valley and I'll come back. Didn't expect anything to happen. Didn't have a camera going. Didn't have my GoPro on. So I go up into the valley and there's an S-turn. And it's, I think, probably about a half mile up into the valley, James.
Probably half, 3/4.
So I come around that S-curve, and as I come around the second curve, there's two Bigfoot. One's got one end each of a calf, actual cow calf, walking down the trail, and all of a sudden, my four-wheeler comes to a complete stop, and the back end goes up, and I'm looking down at the ground. And I'm like, holy cow, and I look over my shoulder, and I can see the hair of the shoulder of the one that picked me up. It drops me down, and I'll be honest, I don't remember how I turned around. All I remember is getting back to where the rest of the guys were at the listening post. My four-wheeler was steaming like crazy. It was so hot. They said when I come across the creek where they were at, I didn't even break water. I just went right over it. So we got back to camp. I was kind of in a little shock. You know, this was something new to me that happened. And of course, one of my old timers was standing there. Oh, you wuss, let's go back. You wuss. I was like, all right, I'll go back, but you're going with me. So we got him on the back. Me and him cruised up there, and the Bigfoot had put a big old huge branch across the trail where all this happened. Basically telling us, don't come back here. So we come back, and the next day at the symposium, the guy that is the caretaker for the cattle herd nearby, he come in and, you know, he likes to visit with me about Bigfoot and stuff. And I told him what happened, and he got real white-faced, and I was like, what's wrong? He goes, I'm missing a calf. He went out to check on his cattle, and one of his calves were missing. So I said, okay, what color was it? He said, black. It was a black calf that they were carrying. So basically, I had interrupted them taking their dinner back, and I think the other one was just trying to keep me from running into them with the four-wheeler, but it picked up almost a half-ton four-wheeler with my big butt on it, you know, and basically stopped me from doing 20 miles an hour. So that is in the book if y'all want to buy one. It's got all my encounters in it. And of course, here's the four-wheeler. It actually, you can actually see the fingerprints here. It actually broke the welds on the bumper. So it took a lot of pressure for it to do that. Go ahead. This just kind of a map showing how it happened. I'm not sure what that other picture was. We come to this. Didn't DNA prove Bigfoot exists? I get asked a lot of questions. You know, hey, wasn't it on the news that they proved that Bigfoot existed with DNA evidence? The lady that did it was Dr. Melba Ketchum. She screwed everything up on this. She screwed it up so bad that she had to create her own scientific journal to release her data. Most Bigfoot researchers have basically said, you know, her study was so bad that it didn't prove nothing. So if you come up and ask, you know, well, what about the DNA? They blew it. So we got to start from scratch. Go ahead. TV shows. Who all's watching Finding Bigfoot? How about Mountain Monsters? Okay. I was on the Discovery Channel, Legends of the Ozark. We filmed for a good 12 hours solid for 15 minutes of airtime. We had 12 individuals running with us. When we was out there with Cherokee Nation, James can tell you, we had 6 guys following us around with lights and cameras and microphones. We did numerous retakes of stuff. TV shows are not going to find proof of Bigfoot. Go ahead. Seriously, y'all watched Mountain Monsters. Buck, the little fat guy, they actually gave him a gun. Have you seen how many times Buck falls down with a gun?
Falls into the creek
Yeah.
every time.
And if you listen close enough sometimes, you'll actually hear him pull the trigger when he falls down. They don't give him a loaded gun, but man, just think what would happen if they did.
They'd be dead.
We also have Matt Moneymaker for finding Bigfoot. He has proclaimed himself to be an expert. There is no experts on Bigfoot. I can tell you from my experiences what I know, but even then I can't prove to you some of the stuff that I say I know. He's been known to get on TV and say, oh, we're going to try fireworks. Well, dude, that's been done before. You know, we've tried so much of the stuff that he did on TV, but you know, when he comes out as an expert, you gotta tend to ignore it. Now, Mountain Monsters. This is a compilation of Buck falling down with a gun. Go ahead and play the video.
Yeah, hit them. I was trying to practice my balance skills. Careful, Bill. Be careful. Where's he at, Bill? Where's he at? Where's he at? Where'd he go?
There goes Buck.
Careful, guys. We gotta get guys. I'm good. I'm good.
He always,
Oh, Bill. Oh, you all right, bro? Damn. Jim, you all right? Yeah. You got to work down that side, we'll work down this side. Watch that old building right there. Oh, Billy, hey, you all right? You all right?
All right, guys.
Listen. Bill, you all right, Bill? You all right? Yeah, all right. Come on. Good man. You all right, Buck? Oh, get out. Buck down.
Folks, that is not how real researchers do it in the woods.
Thank you.
If I have to run, I'm just dead. That's all there is to it. I'm not going to do it. Social media. Now, I want to cover this just because a lot of people ask me, well, hey, I've seen these videos on YouTube that this guy's putting on there. Facebook, people post some of the worst garbage as far as evidence. Basically, 99% of so-called evidence posted there is bogus garbage. People are doing it for the attention. If you really want to see what is actually real research, real evidence, the MABRC has a forum where we post all that stuff. It's not social media. It's our message board where we keep in touch with each other and we post, I think last count, we've got 20,000 articles about Bigfoot that we've accumulated over the years. So, you know, when you look and see a video posted on YouTube, chances are it's done either as a hoax, as a joke, or just for the hits. The more times people look at it, the more money they make off of it. And this little guy here is my grandson. He's been doing this since he was 4 months old. He's 17 now. He don't like going back in the woods that much anymore because he's got a girlfriend. But here he is when he was about 6 or 7. He thought he seen something, so we had to stop the car so he could get out and look at it with binoculars. But we're always searching for evidence, even when I'm driving from here back to Stillwell today. I'll be looking in the woods as I drive to make sure I might not see something. And of course, this is the MABRC forums. It's at www.mabrc.com. It is hosted on a site overseas, so it may take a minute or two for it to pop up on your screen. So don't worry, it's just slowness on our part, but that's where everything's kept at. I want to say thanks for listening. I hope it wasn't too boring. I hope it was interesting. I'll be here for a little bit if you want to ask questions or look at the cast, or I got books up here on Bigfoot to sell. We do all this on our own dime, so when you buy a book, it just goes to